Gary did not focus on how. He focused on why. His why was each one of us. Gary was trying to help all of us grow into the best version of ourselves. And Young Living was the garden that he created to help all of us grow. Each of you are community builders too. Each of you are turned into a part of the garden. And it is the responsibility of all of us to keep the garden healthy. Maybe your area of the garden is large, maybe it's small, or maybe it's just beginning and you're the only person in your patch of that garden. It has been humbling. It's been a very humbling experience to stand on stage today and share with you some of Gary's words. And I hope that I have represented him well, as this is not a responsibility that I take lightly. And I hope that what I've shared today helps you as you tend to your patch in your women's garden. So let's all keep growing together. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much. I may have messed up that transition because I was supposed to intro Mary onto stage, but
I'm introducing myself.
here's the introduction, Mary.
You know, John and I have watched so many tapes, the old cassette tapes, the old videotapes together, looking for things. And he and I have shared a lot of emotion together, and we've cried a lot together. And I know John used to care as much as I do. And I didn't know that that video would affect me as much as it did. I know you didn't know this.
I've watched it 20 times getting it ready and putting the subtitles in. I didn't think it would hit me.
But I think part of the reason that we feel that way is because of your energy, because of what you feel, because of what you're experiencing, because of what it means to you. Gary affected people all over the world. And I still get text messages and emails from people in Taiwan, in China. I had one just a week ago from a beautiful member in Beijing. They didn't know very well, but they knew what Young Living meant to them. And they're starting to grow again because they're together. They're becoming freer. And they can express themselves. And I think when you're able to express how you feel, you can touch the heart of someone else. And you can't really do that as well through Zoom. And I think we're all sick and tired of Zoom.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
But I am grateful for that technology because it has enabled us to be in touch and to be alive with each other. But it's very different than being in a room like this where you can share the energy and the feelings that you have. My eyes are red and my makeup's probably probably running down my face, but too bad. John, thank you. That was wonderful. I would hate to have to do any of this without John. He takes really good care of me, and he worries about me. And we have connection rooms, and it makes it easier because we don't have to go out in the hall to find each other. And he'll knock on the door, and he'll say, Mary, and I say, yeah, I'm on my computer, and he'll open the door, and I'll say, John, I need your help. and he's a dream to work with, and he's always happy. He's always willing. He'll do anything he can to help anybody who asks him, and he has the most wonderful attitude. And sometimes I think if we could all have that same kind of attitude, we wouldn't suffer as much as we do, and we wouldn't make life as difficult for ourselves as we do. So I just really, really appreciate John so much. And I want to say, because I won't be on stage again, how much I appreciate Kristen and her staff. What a magnificent event we have had here, even though we still have tomorrow, and I know there'll be great things happening. But we've been blessed with wonderful speakers. The attitude of the staff has just been phenomenal. So quick to respond, so quick to help. And when I think of all of the languages, the translations and your different needs, I can only salute all of them and give thanks and gratitude for what they have done to make this successful for all of us who are in attendance. Kristen, thank you. Thank all of you. I have missed being with you. I lived in Vienna for several years in my early 20s. Much of my growing up and education took place here in Europe. In the Schloss Theater outside of Wien, I had just finished singing the role of Susanna in the performance of the Marriage of Philip. And I was excited over such a magnificent accomplishment. We were just a bunch of students, including the director, the conductor, the students in the orchestra, the set designer, and all the singers. We were all students in the academy, and it was a wonderful experience together. After a glorious evening performance, I walked out to my car, my little Volkswagen, my key in the ignition, and before I turned it over, suddenly, in my head, I heard a voice say to me that it was time to return home. I can remember I put my head on the steering wheel in shock, but the feeling was so strong, I had a knowing come over me and felt compelled to follow the direction. I had just graduated from the Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts and was planning on going after my dream of a career singing opera. But now those dreams were blowing away, and I was feeling a bit lost without knowing what I would do. I was offered the opportunity to sing the role of Adele in the Fledermaus in a small opera house in Baden, outside of Wien. This was a fabulous role for me, so I couldn't turn it down. I delayed my return for a couple of months, but eventually the time came, and the feeling of needing to return home was overshadowing my desire to stay. I cried all the way to the Bahnhof, and I still remember the tears running down my face as I waved goodbye to my dearest, dearest friends through the window. Oh, Lemon, come back. As the train pulled away from the station, heading for Brussels from where I was to fly home. It was the cheapest flight. That's by Brussels. That was far away from me. I was a poor student and I didn't have any money. When I think back, I believe that was the hardest decision I have ever made in my life. Especially when I had no idea why I was going home and what I was going to do. I didn't go home for any particular reason, only because of a feeling. Almost 20 years later, when Gary and I returned to Bean for a Young Living meeting, I was awestruck at how my life had evolved. As students, we bought standing room tickets, Stehplatz, in the Opera House, for the theater, for 5 shillings, which is 1/10 of a euro. And so I went almost every night to the opera. Afterwards, the custom was for our little student group to go out to eat afterwards. I always went, but I never ate because I didn't have the money to spend on food in a restaurant. I told my friends that I wasn't hungry, and I just ordered heißen limonade, hot lemonade, trying not to show anything on my face as I smell the Wiener Schnitzel and the Dovana. It smells so good. That time in my life was difficult. But today, I think back on those days with so much gratitude. Gratitude for what I have today. And I am so grateful I don't have to go hungry anymore. I love the feeling of sacrifice, of going without for what I believe will come in the future. And believe me, my reward has been far greater than anything I could ever have imagined. And I really just wanted to sing opera. And look, I'm not singing opera. I'm standing in front of you. Talking. Joseph has often said to me, actually both the boys have said to me, Mom, you're too frugal and you don't have to be. They laugh when I pick a coin up off the ground. How many people will pick up a shilling or a penny or that little coin that isn't worth anything? I still do. Oh, good, there are a few like me. I looked at Joseph and I said, because I have been so frugal, I have been able to save the money, not knowing for what, but now to be able to send you to this school so you can follow your dreams. And he just looked at me with a blank stare, but he got the message. About 25 years later, when Gary and I drove into Bean, I was shocked at the changes. Two-way streets were one-way streets. American fast food, which I think ruins the culture, besides your health, was everywhere. And the construction of so many buildings, I wasn't quite sure where the road was taking us. I took Gary back to where I lived, the buildings where I attended classes, and I was thrilled to share a part of my former life with him. I think he enjoyed watching me relive a life that I loved so much for a few moments more than seeing the sights himself. There's a special place in my heart for Europe, for the Middle East, because this is where my great world education began. And I'm always so happy to come back, even though I get confused and I don't know which language to speak. It's the same for Gary. Every time he returned to France, because that is where his great education
in the world of aromatic plants and distillation began. Since we are here in Spain, let me tell you how important Spain is to the history of young living. In 1998, Jean-Noel arranged for us to visit the frankincense distillery in southern Spain, north of Sevilla. The frankincense distillation takes about 12 hours. So Gary was watching, analyzing, busy taking notes, and lots of photos and photos and photos. The visit to Spain set Gary on an uncharted path into the world of Arabia, following the frankincense trail that has rewarded all of us in young living in so many ways. Speaking of Spain, I should mention our younger son Joseph graduated from high school this year. This summer, he had the opportunity to come to Spain, and he spent 6 weeks in the town of Illescas, about 20 minutes from Madrid, training for soccer, or football as you call it in Europe. I have never seen him so happy as he was in Spain. Antonio Lazaro, his coach, and his wife Veronica invited Joseph to live with their family while training. And I would like Antonio and Veronica to stand up. And I know that Joseph was texting back and forth with them, but they don't speak a word of English, which made me so happy, because that gave Joseph the opportunity to use the Spanish that he learned when he was a young child when we were living in Ecuador, which is also where his love of soccer was killed. He could speak a lot of words. I always say, hablo mucho, pero no hablo bien. Pero no hablo con acento. So toda la gente piensa que yo hablo bien. Pero no es la verdad. My older son, Jacob, speaks beautiful Spanish, and he's always correcting me. Joseph speaks like me, but his grammar's even worse than mine. So I told Antonio and Veronica to please correct him and help him speak better Spanish. He speaks fast like they do. Oh my goodness, he speaks so fast, but I don't think he's very good grammatically. But he loves it. And when we met in Atlanta last Sunday, it was so exciting, and we went to get something to eat, and he's jabbering Spanish at the ladies there in the little restaurant. And they asked him if he was from Spain, or where did he learn Spanish? He said, "No, he's been there a couple of times." He was excited, and it was fun. But he has so much love in his heart for this country and for Antonio and his family, and he really wants to come back to Europe, to come back to Spain. So who knows what's out there. But right now, I just enrolled him in the IMG Sports Academy in Florida. And I was just there helping him get kind of acquainted with his unknown adventure. And I started thinking about convention. And somehow in my mind, I thought Florida was closer to Spain than Utah was to Spain. But when I asked John in the airport in Tampa how long the flight was, and he told me 9 hours, I was in shock because I didn't bother to read the itinerary because I just assumed it was shorter. Dumb me, huh? But anyway, because I was in Florida, I kept thinking, I want to go to this thing. I want to go to the convention. This is a great opportunity. I don't have to worry about Joseph. He's in school. Jacob and Kate are doing their thing. I'm a free woman. She had not asked me to come. I know she was thinking it. I could feel her vibrations. She didn't dare ask me because she knew how busy I was and how much responsibility I had in the office. So I said, Kristen, I'm thinking about coming here. She said, oh, Mary, that would be so fantastic. And I said, well, I'll talk to John and see if he'll come with me. And I said, maybe this will help you bring more people to convention. She said, oh no, Mary, I want it to be a surprise. And I said, what? A surprise? Well, that's not fair to everybody. And she says, no, it's the right thing to do. I feel it. So I went along with it. So Kelly found tickets for John and me at the last minute, and here we are. And John helped me put my presentation together. I mean, we've done it for so long. I mean, he just kind of knows what to do. And half the time he corrects my presentations too, so he's really great for me. And I just appreciate that so much. And you've heard, you know. So here we are. Now, it's a great opportunity for me to be able to come and share some of the things that are really dear to my heart. Stories of traveling with Gary, stories of what we learned together. And as I stand here and I look into your faces, I have that same feeling of joy that came over me, just like when I returned to being so many years ago with Gary. I see your faces, I feel your anticipation, and I find myself wondering, what might I say that would be of value to you? I can tell you stories, I can give you words of encouragement, but I think my greatest value is to let you know how much I care about you, how much I love you, and to give you what emotional support I can for what you are experiencing in this part of the world. I actually should change that from I to we. Because all of us in the U.S., Ben, Joe, Ed, John, we all feel that. We care so much. And we feel in many ways helpless because we're so far away. And I was so thrilled when I heard Brett was coming. And of course Nicholas, because he's from France, and then John and Dominic. I didn't know Dominic was going to be here, and I saw him last night for the first time. I mean, they're here because they want to share what they love because it's part of who we are. And then Hannah and Dwayne and Jody, Kristen's team from the U.S. We are all one. We are all part of supporting you in what you do in this part of the world. I wanted to talk about our convention blends, roots and wings. I didn't want to talk about products that you didn't have. So you can imagine how excited I was when I saw it on the list of the new products that have come to Europe. Oh my goodness, I was so thrilled. Roots and Wings is a very funny story. And you're going to have a greater appreciation for what you have when I tell you how unique this story is. But as we explore our roots and better understand the importance of where we come from, it helps us to know where we're going as a company. What is our purpose? And the powerful legacy that carries our mission to the far corners of the world. An important part of our roots is our unique and innovative products. which I love to talk about because I find it fascinating how the ideas came into Gary's head and how he created his formulas. Many times I would watch him sitting at the kitchen table, searching for information, reading about products, and then he would close his eyes and he would go away. You know what I mean? He wasn't there at the kitchen table anymore. One time I was cooking dinner while he was at the table, and I turned around and go, and I could see he wasn't there. His body was there, but he wasn't there. So I just became very quiet and waited and went back to doing what I was doing. When he came back, he looked over and he said, "Barry, come over here. I've got to tell you what I just discovered." A lot of times, that's how he made formulas. Gary was the first in the world to combine essential oils with his herbal formulas. And I know people thought he was an idiot for doing that. He thought he was crazy. He started formulating nutritional supplements a few years before he even learned about essential oils. After he started working with the oils, his analytical mind said, if I have a living essence from the plants, and I put that living essence into the powder, wouldn't that make the powder more powerful? Of course, logic would dictate yes. So what did he do? He got his powder. And the first one was Vitagreen, which is now called multigreen. And he did this in the kitchen in his apothecary. And this was probably about 1985. That's how long ago these products were formulated. So he puts the powder in a centrifuge, and he starts the centrifuge going. And he's all excited. And he takes his little oil blend, and he starts pouring it into the centrifuge. And he's all excited. You know what? When the centrifuge stopped, everything had stuck to the sides of the centrifuge like glue. Oh, and he had to take a chisel to chisel it off. Now, Gary was always one to find a solution. I don't think he was particularly smiling at that moment, but he was always laughing when he told the story. And I heard the story many times, and it was always the same. It never varied. So I know he wasn't making it up. He was one to find the answer. So he just started over, changed the formula, changed how he did it. You can see some of these are the original labels here on the old products. If you come to Utah, if you come to Young Living headquarters, you will see these bottles in the museum because I don't know why, but I saved some of them and I have them in storage. And so when we started putting the museum together, I was really thrilled. I have lots of artifacts from the early days of the beginning of Young Living that you can see there. Today, you're just such a great take care of me. Thank you. As I said yesterday, I don't do well in air conditioning nor in heating. I do the best outside in fresh air. Neither Gary nor I. Gary really couldn't sleep in the heat, and he couldn't stand the air conditioning, and many times he would get up and go downstairs and sleep in our basement and open all the doors and the windows so he could have fresh air. And he was right next to the creek that runs by our house. And he bought the house for the creek and the mountains, not for the house, because the house was a disaster. But he was away from the city, and he was next to his mountains, and he could listen to the water. So we lived 25 years like that, trying to escape air conditioning and heating. But anyway, that's what makes me cough a little bit. But because Gary was the first to put essential oils into supplements, everybody thought he was crazy. He was nuts. He didn't know anything. He didn't have a PhD. He didn't teach at a university. He didn't run a laboratory. He wasn't a credentialed scientist. How could he do anything like that? He didn't know anything. If you go to the store today, look at your labels. I bet you there's an essential oil in practically every label you read. It's interesting how Gary was so ridiculed and so slandered because of what he said and what he did. And I often asked him, well, I didn't often, but I did ask, how do you stand it? How do you live with all of the slander and the criticism? And he said, you know what, Mary? I'm going that way. That's my direction. And I don't see anybody in front of me. There's nobody there. But when I turn around, there's everybody back there trying to catch up with me. And you know what? He's been gone almost 4.5 years, and they're still copying us. It's amazing. There were no essential oil companies in America when Young Living was started. And in the last 10 to 15 years, the roots of every essential oil company, almost every essential oil company, goes back to Young Living. You can see it in their literature. You could hear it in their words. And you can definitely see it in the ingredients in their labels. Now, that's a no-brainer, believe me. I think so often of everything that Gary went through, teaching, wanting people to listen, wanting people to know what he knew. And he gave everything to anybody. He shared everything he knew. He kept no secret. And you know what? Young Living started to grow. And the naysayers, the criticizers, the slanderers started saying, what's he doing? What is Young Living? What is this company? And you know what? They started copying. And they're still copying. But you know what else? We had former employees who thought Gary was a dumb farmer and didn't know anything about business and didn't know anything about marketing. And they said, there's money to be made in essential oils. Let's take what Gary's done and go make great marketing and create our own company. And they were creating their own formulas, their labels, and soliciting our distributors while they were still being paid as employees by Young Living. And that is a fact that can be proven. They will deny it if you ask them. Their stories are horrendous. But they cannot prove what they say. I can. I don't go there very often. But I tell you this because you are faced with a lot of adversity out there. You're hearing a lot of stories that aren't true. There are a lot of rumors that are going around. Oh, Young Living is going bankrupt. Young Living is going away. Well, you can't have a mission from God that's going away. You can't can't have your mission to be one to take God's healing oils of Mother Nature to humanity and have that company go away. It's not going to happen.